So if you're here for orientation, if you haven't gotten books and the material, I invite you to grab that out here. So why don't you come sit up close? Let's gather together here because we'll wait a couple more minutes because there were up to a dozen families that were going to be here, maybe. And if others join us, great. Otherwise, we're not going to keep you here all night. Thanks for being here. So we're making a pretty, in some ways, significant shift in the confirmation program, and in other ways, not that big of a shift. Last year, at the end of confirmation, we put out an invitation to all parents and kids to come to a night where we did different breakout groups and we had conversations. Out of that, along with conversation with the Family Life Committee, we've decided that as a church, one of our foundational principles is that the home is the best place for faith to be taught or caught, right? So the truth is, we get young people maybe for an hour of worship and maybe for an hour of class, and if we are doing that 14 times a year, there's only so much we can do, right? So our sense is if we can move to a place where the home is where confirmation is centered, we're going to be in a better place. Welcome, welcome, welcome. In the midst of thinking about that, then we've got a responsibility, and part of that is providing resources to families so that they can do what they need to do in their conversations and such. So what does that mean? It means that we've gone to a program. If you've got the booklets through Faith Incubators, you will notice in there, I'm going to grab you guys one of them, and I'll... Hello. So we've gone to this program with Faith Incubators. Faith Incubators has been around for a long time. They, one of the ways they describe what they do is in the past, when I was young, confirmation was really about learning information. How many of you enjoyed confirmation? You're going to have fun. I promise you. I hope. Confirmation for me was an interruption of Saturday morning duck hunting. I grew up in a small town. My best buddy lived on another farm about a mile as the crow flies from where we lived. We would meet at a slough in between at sunrise so that we could start hunting. We would pop from slough to slough all morning long hunting, and then I had to stop in time to be able to walk into town so that I could be at church for confirmation. And it wasn't the pastor's fault. He was a great guy, but it just was what it was. What I hope through this new process that we're using, it is called Head to Heart. The point is, we're going to be learning some things, but the hope is to help push those things into the heart and into conversation. Faith really is about the ability to talk with others and figure out what's going on in life. So part of what we are, part of this program will be, if you look on page 6, each night there is a piece of scripture to read and to have conversation around. And it's a piece called the Faith Five. So you would sit together. It doesn't have to happen at night. It can happen any time that you want. But the first thing that you do is talk about what are your highs or what are your lows. If it's at night, what's the best thing that happened during the day? If you end up doing it in the morning, what's the best thing that happened yesterday? So that's the highs. What was the worst thing that happened? And just to spend a little bit of time talking about that. So highs, lows, the Bible verse, you see right there on page 6 on the left side is the verse of the day. It's from Ephesians 4:4-6. There is one body and one spirit. Just as you are called to the one hope of your calling, one Lord, one faith, one baptism, one God and Father of all, who is above all and through all and in all. So when you think about that verse, when you read about it together, about a God who is with all and in all, what does that have to say into those highs and into those lows? That's the next piece, right? Then, time for prayer. To pray together around the highs and the lows, and then to bless one another as you wrap up. So you may have noticed that for the past year, we have been making available in worship a little half sheet of paper that walks through these exact same things. If you'd like to be able to grab that on a Wednesday night or on a Sunday morning, you can do that. It's always out at the Welcome Center. It gives you a prayer to walk through for the entire week. But the point is, I believe that if we can help families start conversations at home, be involved in, I think that we can help build relationships so that as kids get older, conversations continue to happen. I raised 3 boys who are now all out of the house and, well, kind of. One is back with us, sort of. But I know that the older they got in the midst of high school, the harder we had to work to keep conversation going. And our hope is that this can be one way that we can help families to keep conversations going about important things. So what is... it's important, I think, to push back to why we're doing what we're doing. The whole confirmation program, when a child is brought forward for baptism, it's the parents and the sponsors who make promises. They promise to raise the child in the faith, to bring them to worship, to continue bringing them to communion, to helping them learn how to serve others, and to stand up and speak for others as well. When it comes to confirmation, they're walking through a process to help them to get ready to say, Mom, Dad, sponsors, what you did when you brought me to baptism, I agree with. And I think it's really important that we understand from the beginning that if we come to the end of the process and a young person says, I don't know that I can say yes to these things, we've got to be okay with that. Because that doesn't mean that they're not condemned, they're not unloved or unlovable. It means that in that moment they're being really honest. Because the promises that they make are not to parents, it's not to the sponsors, and it's not to the pastors. The day that they stand and affirm their baptism, they are affirming that to God. And there are kids from time to time who will say, I'm not going to stand up there and lie. And I think we've got to be okay with that. And then and keep the door open that says, anytime you're ready to say yes, come back and talk. And we will do that, right? I think that's a whole lot more supportive of a young person. I think it's a whole lot more honest with them than to have them walk through not believing what they're saying and then just walk away. So I want to be really upfront. The why of this process, and we'll talk with the young people all along, the why of this is to try to figure that out. So one of the significant shifts is that we're looking at, we're really putting this back into the family's laps. You may have heard the sermon a few weeks ago when I talked about the small catechism, that the catechism was written not to be used in a class like this. Luther wrote the small catechism to be read and talked about in the home. Because 500 years ago, when he went out to visit parishes that were around where he was living, he was actually mortified by what he saw. That a lot of people didn't know the Lord's Prayer, the Creed, or the Ten Commandments. They didn't know what was going on, and they weren't really certain who God was or what was going on. And so Luther wrote the small catechism. And that's why the simple questions are there. What does this mean? He's trying to help parents engage conversations with kids. So this new, the new curriculum that we're using really combines some of the things that have been used here at Trinity for a long time. We are blessed with having really good mentors that walk with our kids, or guides. They'll continue that. I think there are 17 of them that have stepped up and said yes to doing that. They are a godsend in the midst of what we are doing. Those guides will continue to do, we have nights that are theme nights. There will be 13 of them. You can see them on your schedule. 13 different nights that there will be theme nights. There will be other nights where there are either a fellowship night where the guide will get together with the kids and they will do something. And then there are other nights that are service nights where they will, so some of the young people tonight are tied in with doing the United Way backpacking or filling the backpacks or doing the food bags. Others will do service events at other times throughout the year. I want you to know that all three of those things are really important, because if the guides are going to get to places where they talk about real things, you need the ability to have some fun with the kids as well, because you build the relationship in those fellowship and servant events so that when we have the theme nights and they go off to conversation, there's a better chance that there's going to be some good conversation. So here's what a class night or a theme night, we're not calling it classes anymore. Theme night will look like this. We will gather at 6:45 down in the fellowship hall. There'll be some music and some things like that. We'll probably from time to time have a skit. We'll be together there probably doing 10 minutes or so of review from the last theme night that we had. We will engage probably 20 to 25 minutes of learning, and then they will break off and they will go to different spots throughout the building. So each of the groups will have their own dedicated spot. So if you had a kiddo that was in confirmation last year, it was a tough year. It just was. And that's part of COVID life. We were trying to do, like a lot of churches, we were trying to provide both online and in-person learning to allow parents to choose and go where they needed to go. But it didn't serve either group real well. It was just hard to do. So those who were learning from home, I think it was hard to be engaged, and those who were here, when we tried to have conversations, we probably had 40 people in the room at a time, and it's just loud and it's too much. So when we break into small groups this year, we're going to be scattering all over. So each of the coves here in the sanctuary will be a different small group. We may use the balcony as well. There are 3 rooms in the tower. Not everyone knows this, but there are 3 rooms up there. There's a lot of junk that needs to get cleaned out quickly, but we'll do that. There's the library, there's the community center, the staff lounge will be used, the conference room, so all over. We'll break them up. They'll have about 20 minutes with their mentor, and they'll talk through highs and lows, and they'll go through the Faith 5 process, as well as re-engage some of the learning that we've done. They'll come back into the fellowship hall. It'll be a mellower space, probably with some candlelight, some lighter music. We will do a closing worship together, about 10 minutes long. We'll be done by 8 o'clock. So we'll start at 6:45. We'll be done by 8 o'clock. There'll be a lot more movement in it and different things going on. So the other piece that I'll let you know, part of what we will be doing is gathering our mentors back together. I hope that we can make it work at least 4 times through the year, or our guides back together, and they will continue to give us feedback on how they think it's going. But you as parents, if you're not a guide, we would appreciate hearing from you what's working well and what's not. In the schedule, it tells you when everything is going on, the nights that we're off, the nights that it's a fellowship or a servant event. It has in there when the different age groups are serving the banquet. So I think it's the 9th and 8th graders this year who will serve the banquet. And which groups will be involved with this. One of the major shifts this year is during Lent, we will not have theme nights. The only caveat to that is I think that we're asking our mentors to get together and do, or our guides to get together and do one fellowship or servant event in Lent. Otherwise, the expectation and requirement is that the kids are in worship every Wednesday night. There'll be a little booklet that will have some questions about what we're studying in the midst of our Lenten worship. They'll answer those questions. One of the leaders, myself, Pastor Lee, Gracia, or intern Colin will sign off on it. That's all they have to do. Lent, the history of Lent, was a time when people new to the faith were raised up in the faith. They were catechized, is the word. They were taught about the faith. And we're going to continue that process in Lent. So, for example, in the past, we've done things like a study on the Lord's Prayer or prayer in general or whatever, okay? So that's a pretty significant shift. So that means there are 7 weeks there that there's not expectations of classwork, but that we want the young people there every week. So in the little handout bulletin thing, it talks about no more than 2 absences, so in a row. So that really is what we want, and then COVID comes along. And so the truth is, I want to be really upfront. It is not going to be helpful if you even a little bit suspect that your child might be sick or has been exposed or whatever. Keep them home. I think we've got to be really, and just shoot Gracia or myself an email or a text and say, you know what, we're not going to share this with anyone, but it's helpful to hear from you to say, I'm concerned we've been exposed, not going to come. That's okay. We'll bless you in that. I would rather not expose a whole room full of people. And you're not going to get guilted. You're not going to get shamed or anything else, all right? I want you to know that. So let's talk a little bit about the other things that are in this. I'll stop real quick, though. Do you have any questions is anything popping up? It's not making sense. If you haven't been through this before and it's all brand new to you and it feels overwhelming, say something, please. It's brand new to me, too. All right. So the first panel here, what happens at church shouldn't stay at church, really lays out the philosophy behind Head to the Heart. In the red there are the promises that parents and sponsors made at baptism, that you'll faithfully bring the child to the services of God's house. You promise that you're going to come to worship, that you're going to teach your child the Lord's Prayer, the Creed, and the 10 Commandments, that you're going to place in their hands the Holy Scriptures and provide for their instruction in faith. So that's what we're doing. That's part of what confirmation is. So we've talked about the theme events over on the right, the theme events, the service events, and the fellowship events. All of our small groups are 3 to 5 kids, except for our 9th graders, our larger groups. We are in a 3-year rotation with our confirmation. So we have a year of, so what's specific to the Lutheran faith? An Old Testament year and a New Testament year. This year, we're studying more the Lutheran faith. So we'll be looking at baptism, Holy Communion, what worship looks like, spend a little bit of time in the Lord's Prayer and the Apostles' Creed. The expectations are there on the bottom. The requirement is a minimum of 15 sermon notes. So here's the big deal. So that is the minimum. You can do more than that. That is great. I'll tell you, my past, I never had sermon notes. When I was up in Stanley, we didn't do sermon notes. I just had an understanding. As long as you're coming to worship almost every week, we don't need to do sermon notes. That's harder to do here. I could figure out, I knew all the kids really, really, really well. But the point is, if we want to build a faith basis under our kids, we need to help out by being in worship with them. And so 15 sermon notes is the minimum. I wish we could figure out a way to not do them at all, and then just have young people worshiping with us. Talks about, if you look on the back, it talks about the absences, but again, in the COVID world, let us know. It'll be okay. It is crucial that every week the young people bring their Bible, their this, and then everyone has gotten one of these as well, okay? If you want a sweet little pull-string backpack doohickey, there are still some left on the cart back there. As you leave, grab one. If they're gone, which I don't think they're going to be all gone, but if they are gone, let us know, and if you want one, we'll find one somewhere. This is going to be really important. It won't impact our last year students, our 8th graders and 9th graders, as much as it will the 6th and 7th graders. Part of what we are working to do is move to a process where we're laying some questions out before the young people and give them a chance to write from time to time, so that when it comes time for them to write their faith statement, they've got some material to go back to and to think about in the midst of their writing. And sometimes in that last 10 minutes, we might give them 5 minutes to just sit and write about what they heard in the midst of the day, or what struck them, or what's going on in their life. The journal is just for them. It is for them to keep, and we're hoping that they'll keep it for all 3 years through the process, because it could become a nice piece to help them as they go to writing their faith statement. Gracia is going to eventually get in here, but I might have told you absolutely everything that is happening. So one of the requirements is that young people help in worship at least 2 times each year. There are a lot of different ways that can be done. They can come and usher. We need people who are willing to help with tech. If people are interested in that, we would love to get them trained. It would be great to have people that would like to rotate in learning how to run both our live stream camera system or the PowerPoint, the projector system. So, and it's not hard. That's another way to serve. Doing music is a way to serve. Reading in worship is a way to serve. There's a whole list of things that you can do there. The grade level requirements are there as well. In 6th and 7th grade, there's an exam. It's a different exam for 6th graders and a different one for 7th graders. There's a study sheet that comes out. It's not a surprise. It's, can you write out the Lord's Prayer? Can you write out the Apostles' Creed? Can you put the books of the Bible in the order. It's pretty straightforward stuff, and you cannot fail. We promise you that. We'll help you keep working on it until you get through it. I think those are the pieces that I need to share with you tonight. Are there questions that you've got? So who is a first-year person? First year, okay? Second-year person? So everybody else is a last-year person? Okay, very good. How many of you are ninth graders? Who are the ninth graders? Eighth graders or the rest? Okay. So one of the things that I will share with you that we're wrestling with a little bit, okay? You will notice in the schedule that we have scheduled that the eighth graders would be confirmed in the fall, next year in the fall. Let me tell you what our thinking is about that. I'd like us to try an experiment for a few years. Doesn't mean that we need to stay there forever. But the way things are working out, we only get 13 theme nights in this system by basically saying that we're not going to do class in Lent. If we could shift to an October affirmation of baptism, what we would do with those young people who would be ninth graders in 2022, we would meet with them maybe twice at the very end of August, first week of September, on a Wednesday night to help them begin thinking about their faith statements. That would give them a lot more time to be working on their faith statements. They wouldn't be in class, but they'd have the ability to come and talk with us and kind of receive input and as we continue to work back and forth. And that we would then do the affirmation of baptism service somewhere toward the end of October on a Sunday afternoon. Family Life is going to talk more about it in the coming week or so, but I'd love to hear if you've got questions or wonderments about that. So, okay? And if it doesn't, there's no magic time to do the affirmation of baptism service. I mean, we'll do our best to make whatever works in people's lives, okay? But that's what we're thinking. Any questions at all? Excellent. My cell phone number is available. I don't see the little rack with the cards out there, though. I will have little cards out there that has my cell phone number on it. I have no problem with you texting me if you've got a question, if something's going on, if there is something that's not making sense, call me, stop by the church. I'll stick around after our normal hours. I'm here plenty of nights and whatever. I'm more than willing to talk to you. We're trying to do something that is a little bit new, and we're going to have to keep tweaking all the way along. And you're going to help us do that by open conversation, okay? That's all we've got then. Thanks for coming. We start class next week. Theme night next week downstairs. Thanks for coming.